for CARICOM, I think we were single-minded in what we wanted out of the agreement. Early on, our foreign ministers had indicated to us um, that it was important that the special circumstances of CIS be reflected in the agreement, that there was that the agreement contained meaningful provisions on capacity building and transfer of marine technology, and that there should be an even balance between conservation and sustainable use, which are two of the areas that the agreement sought to cover. So from the outset, we as CARICOM recognized that given the scope of the agreement, both in terms of the issues to be addressed in the agreement as well as the technical knowledge that was needed, that those of us who were based in New York did not possess the capacity to negotiate the agreement individually or even collectively on our own. And so at the outset, we approached the CARICOM Secretariat to assist us in mobilizing our regional institutions to provide us with the requisite technical, legal, and technical support to educate us on the issues that were being addressed in the agreement. And to that end, our foreign ministers agreed that a advisory group would be established, comprising experts from CRFM, the University of the West Indies, etc. And with the support of those regional institutions, including CARICOM Secretariat, we were able to mobilize the kind of expertise that we needed to facilitate our involvement in the negotiations. And then, unlike other countries that had large delegations, we recognize that in order for us to manage our involvement in in the negotiations and ensure that CARICOM was very active in the negotiations, given the scope and the issues to be addressed by the agreement, that it was necessary to have persons from our region be responsible for each of the parts of the agreement, the various thematic areas to be covered by the agreement. So, pursuant to the decision that was taken in 2011 about the scope of the agreement, namely that the agreement would address the issues of marine genetic resources, including benefit sharing, area-based management tools, including marine protected areas, environmental impact assessments, and capacity building and transfer of marine technology, as well as uh, a number of cross-cutting issues that emerged as the negotiations begun. We decided that we would split those areas among ourselves. In addition to that, what we sought to do at the outset was to ensure that CARICOM was represented on the Bureau for the conference, which was responsible for uh, putting in place the arrangements for the intergovernmental conference. And the person from CARICOM who was on that committee was a colleague from the Bahamas. So, among ourselves and with the support of the CARICOM Secretariat and our regional institutions, we were able to participate very actively in the negotiations.
Ms. Babb-Riley indicated the team in New York first requested the Secretariat to get involved back in 2016 when we realized the scope of work that had to be done and the fact that our capacities within the region were limited. So the Secretariat uh, the Secretariat's approach was to bring on board our key regional institutions who we felt had some inherent capacity, that being the University of the West Indies. And of course, we want to thank the Vice Chancellor, Sir Hilary Beckles, for um, always supporting whenever we had a request of him and his team, as well as the executive director of the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, Mr. Milton Horton, who also made his team available to support our member states. The other important thing was the fact that we sought and received the, sup- the support of our Council on Foreign and Community Relations, the COFCO, which includes our Ministers of Foreign Affairs, who first agreed that we will work together as a region in 2016 at their meeting. I think this one was in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where they call upon us to form an interim advisory group comprising persons from our missions in New York, from Capital, as well as our regional organizations. And we kept on since 2016. We reported regularly to the COFCO, to our foreign ministers, our progress. And they were able to provide the overarching framework under which we negotiated, such as the things already outlined, special circumstances for SIDS, the balance between sustainable use and, conservation measures. So it was the role of the secretariat basically was to keep um, all the moving parts um, you know going, because the nature of foreign relations is that sometimes persons that we have available to us are reassigned, so we have to keep the knowledge base, all the information available for new persons coming in, to organize meetings regularly and briefings regularly in conjunction with our permanent reps in New York. um, we also had to, when we went off, when we experienced the major delay due to COVID, we had to take a lot of our work online. So there were several times that we were required to have meetings virtually, and to keep the momentum going, and to keep the issue on the radar of our foreign ministers as well as ministers of environment as necessary. So I think the mechanism that involved our member states, represented by our negotiators who came both from New York and Capital, our regional institutions represented by CRFM and UWI, and the Secretariat, which provided the briefings and garnered the political support, went a long way to ensuring CARICOM's success at this negotiation.
I'm really very gratified and also impressed by the level of coordination and support that we actually put together for this particular negotiation, which my two colleagues have not actually emphasized, took place over a very long time. The start of talks for having this agreement went as far back as 2011, and maybe even before in other fora. But the actual process coming from way back then benefited from us having this kind of coordination. Now, initially, the kind of coordination here in New York among the caucus of permanent representatives was essentially the basic element of it. But then it expanded, as Amrika and Juliette have indicated thereafter, to include the experts from Capital, the coordination with the experts from the regional organizations and so forth. And I think that that ought to be a real model of how we approach negotiations in general on issues for the region, and not just here at the UN, but in other various fora where we are actually pursuing these kinds of things. I know that we have shared interests, shared values, shared concerns on all the things. And it really does mean empowering the secretary with the resources that they will also need to help to play that coordinating role, and to also bring on board the relevant organizations and regional bodies from the region to be able to support negotiating processes with the expertise that's needed by the diplomats who have to go into the room and work on it. And one of the other very important things is also bringing on board the support from civil society, which was also very important for the way that we were able to work now, because civil society provided their own level of expertise, but also was able to help support the logistics and the arrangements for a lot of our preparatory work, including workshops which were hosted in the region. And that is another best practice that we should also seek to have regional workshops, preparatory workshops, as we build up the momentum and understanding of the local situations and the broader discussions that are taking place at the global level, and then find a way to create strategies to ensure that we can achieve what we need to get in the negotiations that we are entering into.